If your suggested list of keywords is extremely relevant, you can start an auto campaign because it tells you that Amazon knows your product. Now, if that suggested list is, messy and not relevant at all, you probably shouldn't run an auto campaign because Amazon doesn't know what keywords to show your product for.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is the second episode of Think Outside the Buy Box. I'm your host, Saddam, and today we have with us Destaney Wishon from Better AMS. She is the founder of Better AMS. So today we're going to be we're both passionate about PPC. So we're going to be talking a lot about PPC and just a backstory of how Better AMS came into being. And then we'll jump into our segment for Ask the Expert. So that's going to be the format of it. Destaney, how are you doing today?
Doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Are you excited about 2020?
I am. Judging by how the last 6 weeks gone, I can only imagine what all cool advertising techniques we're going to have in the next year.
100%. And we're going to touch on a lot of these things, especially videos. That's something cool that I recently saw. They're rolling it out. But before I even jump into Better AMS, how about you share a little bit of your background with the audience, how you jumped into PPC?
Yeah, for sure. So I actually got started in PPC 4 years ago. It was this crazy opportunity. I got started at a smaller startup in the area straight out of college. That startup scaled extremely quickly. And within 2 years, I was managing, $10 million budgets for really large CPG companies. So pretty much it's the only thing I know. If anything ever happens to Amazon PPC, I'm going to have to just figure out a new career path, I guess.
Right. I did not know that. So basically you haven't sold on Amazon yourself.
I have not, not even once. I worked at a full consulting, so I understand, all the parts and this is my life, but never personally sourced a product.
This is actually better because most of the time when you talk to a lot of experts, they are kind of jack of all trades, right? Because they've sold on Amazon. And I feel like PPC is an area where there's so much information shared and there's a lot of confusion because one person has one strategy and you have 100 different strategies to go from. So this is right from the source, I guess. We're talking to an actual expert in PPC.
I've been there since the beginning. So I think that's really helpful. And like you said, when I speak with brands, I'm amazed at how people do it. There's so many factors that goes into selling a product. I'm like, I can barely balance the advertising side of things in the last month. How do you do everything? So 100% completely focused.
That's true. And I remember when I started on Amazon, most of the YouTube videos that I watched, they said just dump 300-400 keywords in your campaigns. And yeah, that was the go-to strategy at that time. It has evolved a lot. So we're happy to have you on this episode and kind of share how you go about setting up campaigns and stuff. So how did you come up with the idea of Better AMS and when did you guys start with operations?
Yeah, so I actually found Taylor. I got started as an account executive with him, and he just was managing, the AMS side of things. It was back in the old days where the platforms were completely different. If you wanted to run sponsored brands, it was just on AMS. You could not do that on Seller Central. And I had familiarity with the platform, so I got started with him. And then a year later, I was like, we gotta add sponsored products. So the platforms converged. You could do both. We had a lot of brands reaching out that didn't have AMS access but still wanted to work with us. And then they're like, if you're going to do sponsored brands, you might as well do sponsored products. Thankfully, that was my background. So I was like, let's do it. And we jumped right in. And then I formed that side of the business. And ever since then, anything Amazon advertising we manage, we still work closely with kind of the traditional AMG teams, the reps. We do video and search, display, but if it's an ad that can be ran on Amazon, we probably have some role with it.
Of course, and most of the market is comprised of small sellers or sellers that don't have brand registry or are not vendors, right? So it's good to have that market as well.
Exactly.
Now, in terms of your portfolio, do you guys take on smaller scale sellers as well, or is it just 7 to 8 figure range that you guys target?
It's typically 7 to 8 figure range, strictly because that's what our processes are really wrapped around. We do manage all the new tools, all the new techniques. We do a lot of keywords, and it takes a lot of data, a lot of spend to do that. So in order for us to, help you scale, I recommend before you outsource, get to that point, really get to the point of, maybe 150,000 a month, 200,000 a month, and then, pay someone to fully manage everything, because it's a lot that goes into it. It takes a lot of money to be successful.
Right. Okay. That's good to hear. I do want to share my screen, and what I would like to do is kind of go through the website. Let me know when it pops up.
Fantastic. Got it.
Perfect. So we got Taylor and Destaney here. And that's what you guys named your system, Cyborg system?
Yeah, it's definitely a blended approach, of automation when it comes to bids, just because we have so many keywords being bid on, 4,000 to 5,000 keywords and accounts being bid on. So always recommend you have some type of automation. That's one of the biggest mistakes I see being made in accounts, is just setting $3 bids and letting them go. But then we also have that personal touch of, it's not a software managing your account, because what we run into is when you are utilizing strictly software, unless you're an account 24/7, there's no way to keep up with everything new. So that's kind of why we call it Cyborg, because it's an account executive doing everything crazy, everything new, still manual strategizing, but we have software to make sure your bids are in the right place and your ACOS is fantastic.
Got it. So you have resources allocated to specific accounts. And then with that, do you guys use the software as well?
We have our own in-house bid management software and formulas. So yes.
That's awesome. Okay. Some metrics here. That's pretty smart. With PPC, it's always about case studies and learning. Not just PPC, any kind of advertising. I feel like a lot of advertising agencies miss out on these opportunities where they don't publish results of their successful clients. So you guys have that here as well.
Definitely.
So how do you guys go about onboarding new clients?
Yeah. So one of the first things you do is you can actually fill out a form on our website and basically get a call scheduled with me. So you'll book a call directly on my calendar. And then within that call, it's any questions you have. And I kind of am going to vet to see whether or not we're going to be a great fit for each other. Maybe your needs aren't aligned and we won't be the best fit, then I'm always going to recommend you to someone else. Maybe you really, really understand the ad piece and you just need software for bids. I'll recommend you for that. So we'll hop on a call. If I see we're a good fit, the first thing we're going to do is run an audit on your account. So we'll actually typically be added as a user, or if you're not 100% comfortable with that, you'll send over the reports needed. We'll go through, your search terms, your keywords. We're going to look at your sponsor brands versus sponsor products versus sponsored display. And we're going to pull the numbers and give you a forecast. So then our next call, we'll actually hop on probably a screen share and do a live walkthrough of the data. We can increase your sales by 50,000 at a 22% ACOS by investing in these areas, or by, investing in these keywords. So that's typically what we look for. And then if we're a great fit and you want to work with us and we think that we can really help increase sales for you guys, then we'll, go forward from there.
Yeah, that's a pretty comprehensive approach, especially when you're talking sales forecasts. So on that, because a lot of times, clients, they're asking about profitability or how long it's going to take. So is there a time frame that you guys give them, let's say 6 to 8 months, till we get you to a point where 80% of your sales are organic and 20% are PPC?
Yeah. So, and it's not necessarily able to equate a time frame, because it really depends on the account size. When we sign contracts, we typically recommend, give us 45 days to really start getting everything rolling. But what I recommend to everyone, and it was actually one of the questions you asked me, make data-based decisions. So as long as we have enough data to justify our reasoning, then, we can hop on a call and I can walk you through, here's what we're seeing. We have enough clicks for these keywords to make adjustments to really see our sales increase. So to answer that, there's no definitive timeline. Recommend 45 days minimum before you really start seeing, new campaigns getting launched and optimized, things like that, but no tie-in from 6 to 8 months.
Right. And yeah, you're extremely right. Make database decisions. I don't know if there's an actual term for it, but I call it over tweaking. People going into their campaigns and tweaking after 2 to 3 clicks on every keyword.
Yes.
there's not enough data to support the decision. So
100%. Could not agree more.
yeah. Okay, that's pretty cool. So guys, Better AMS, they have some cool case studies here, so feel free to check it out at your spare time. I'll stop the share now. So now jumping into more PPC related questions.
The exciting stuff.
The exciting stuff, yeah. So one post that I saw on your Facebook was about videos. That's relatively newer. They haven't done a full rollout of that. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. So video search has been in, an open beta phase for 2.5 months now. And if you're familiar with the paid beta that you used to have to go through a rep for, so $35,000 minimum, very, very similar to that. But now, we get it for free. So the biggest calls on that video is it's keyword based. So it's the exact same as your sponsor products. If you're selling a soccer ball, you can target the keyword soccer ball, and then your video is going to show up. Now, where it gets a little bit interesting is right now it's only bottom of search. So there's been some hesitancy to launch this ad just because it's not a lot of ad inventory. But the good news is, if it performs well, it's going to be scaled. Just like everything in Amazon. They're going to launch a test. They're going to see how the market reacts. So when it does well, they're going to give it more ad inventory. So within the last 24 hours, we actually saw self-serve video on search be opened up to desktop as well. So now if you're scrolling on desktop, go to the bottom of page 1, you'll see a video and search ad for top keywords. So that's really cool. In terms of performance, everything's been running at almost a sub 20% ACOS because there's hardly any competition, which is why I always recommend getting in it early. So that's been really cool.
Yeah, it's less competitive, and with videos, it's been proven with either if you're brand registered and you can add a video to your listing, or if it's A+ premium content, videos technically, in theory, they convert a lot more than just images, right? So
yeah, definitely.
Especially with videos on ads. I mean, seems to me like a game changer, and that is the way forward. So like you said, utilize it right now because it's still new and it's less competitive.
Yep. And Amazon loves data. So, the sooner you start indexing for those keywords, the better. One quick thing to note is the landing pages are product specific. It's not a landing page with 3 different ASINs. It's similar to, a product display ad. So when you make your video, you probably shouldn't make it brand specific because you're only going to be able to drive to one ASIN. So you probably need to make it product specific and just be really unique with the keywords you're targeting, the video you're creating, and the landing page you're driving to.
Got it. So, I mean, the people who actually need help with PPC are, I would say, are the new sellers or the ones that are just starting out. How do you go about campaign flows? How do you set up your campaigns so that, and it's not just about having a profitable campaign, it's also about keeping it very organized so that you can go in and easily make tweaks and changes to it?
Definitely. So I recently wrote an article, foundational campaigns, because nowadays I feel like there's at least 20 different campaign strategies you can run on a minimum. So for new sellers, there's kind of 2 different directions. One, if your listing at least has indexation and conversion history, I pretty much always recommend running an auto campaign because the auto campaign's an evergreen keyword research method. You can set really low bids, just let it run in the background, and the Amazon algorithm's going to get better as your product starts indexing for keywords. So even if you start with a higher ACOS, it's going to get better over time, especially if you're adjusting your bids properly. So auto campaigns for almost every, unique product, always recommend running those. Keyword research is really, really important. If you don't have the money to, invest in a keyword that's going to be a $3 CPC, really, really competitive, find the long tail variant of that. Soccer ball, broad phrase and exact, maybe $3. But if you look for, kids soccer ball size specific, kids soccer ball green, things like that, the more long tail you get, the lower your CPCs are going to be and the more likely you're going to be profitable. So really invest in that keyword research if you're tight on cash flow and figure out what long tail variants work really well.
That's a good recommendation. Long tail keywords, always less competitive. And when you're setting it up, do you set it up as a lot of different campaigns? Because the way I kind of do it is I just have one campaign running. And as I've kind of evolved through PPC, I feel like that's the best way to go about it. But I'd like to hear what your approach is to it.
Yeah, we run specific campaigns for every different strategy. The main reason we do this is so we have control over the budget. That's the biggest thing. We don't even run multiple ad groups. It's one campaign per strategy, one ad group, typically one ASIN. If they're, variations by color, which aren't a big difference, we'll put them in the same campaign. But the reason we do this is, let's say you have ranking keywords, your top 5 most competitive keywords in one campaign. They're going to be expensive and your ACOS is not going to be fantastic. It's typically, going to run at a 50, 100% ACOS because it's so competitive. You still want to, bid on those keywords and win those placements, but you don't want a really high budget. You want to bid, maybe $5 a day just so you're sending traffic and converting on those keywords. But then if you have your long tail keywords in a different campaign and they're running at 10% ACOS, you can continue to increase that budget all day long. So this is the strategy we implement across, all of our different campaigns. We separate them out so we have direct control over the budget and the strategy. So it's kind of a control issue and it's like a little bit of, OCD, but that's why we do it.
Yeah, no, that would help because like I said, it's more about being organized. And I feel like having different campaigns for different strategies helps with that because you can isolate those strategies. And
yeah. Something we've seen if you have, one really, really high impression keyword in a full list of 50 keywords, that one high impression keyword gets the majority of your budget. Amazon doesn't evenly distribute a budget across all 50 keywords. So that's another reason, kind of helps with that as well.
Right. And then you said you guys don't even do ad groups. How do you tackle different match types? Let's say broad, phrase, exact. Do you compile them in just one campaign, one ad group?
Yeah, we typically do. We always recommend running in all 3 match types. We kind of did a really big deep dive one day, and broad typically drove, around 3 to 4 times the amount of sales that exact did, but at a 4% higher ACOS. It was around 4 to 6% higher ACOS on average. So still does really well, drives more sales, but you're going to lose some profitability. Now, phrase was the exact same thing. It drove around like 2.5x the amount of sales exacted, but at around 2 to 3% higher ACOS. And then exact match, of course, lowest ACOS because we have direct control, but it's going to be the least amount of sales. So we go ahead and run them all together, mainly for the reasoning that we run all 3 match types at all times.
That's something interesting you just mentioned. So with all these different match types, you're getting different kind of conversions. Now, do you have a different bidding strategy for each match type, or do you just do a blanket rule?
We do. So when we launch, exact is usually a little bit more expensive. Phrase is a little less expensive. Broad's a little bit less expensive. We just waterfall it down, but that's only on a launch. Ideally, you're going to have rules in place where your software kicks in and adjusts the bids. So we don't adjust the bids by match type, but we do launch them just to make sure, we're driving indexation from the beginning by bidding competitive enough to get data.
Because with broad, you can also target a lot of long tail keywords. So sometimes even having a lower bid or a lower placement on that is usually, if it's like fixed bids, then, you can target some of those long keywords. That's another thing for dynamic bidding down or up, or do you guys do fixed? What's your approach to that?
Yeah, we typically do fixed or dynamic down. It hasn't made too big of a difference. We just always recommend you don't trust Amazon to do your software with up. That's typically you're going to spend more than you expect to spend because it's not going to hit your ACOS goals. So if you don't have any software in place, I would probably be doing dynamic down. If you have a really good software, then probably just stick with fixed and let your software do its job.
Sounds good. Good advice. What about keyword isolation? So obviously, one of the big goals from PPC is to rank organically for some of the keywords. How do you go about approaching that?
Yeah. So the tie-in between PPC and ranking and indexation, it completely depends on the guru or the seller you're talking to that day. But the kind of methodology that we've stuck with is we want to base everything we do on the foundations. So ideally, if you're driving traffic from a certain keyword and you convert on that keyword, your organic's going to increase. Now, whether it increases, by 1% or 10%, no one actually knows. So what we do for our ranking campaigns is we take, the top 5 to 10 major keywords that a brand wants to rank on, whether that's, their long tail ones or if it's their really competitive ones. And we're going to put those in a campaign with just exact match. We're going to bid really high and we're going to drive as much traffic as possible to those specific keywords, which that's our strategy. There's nothing, too tricky about it. I know some people, will pause the keywords if conversion's bad because they say that, poor conversion means that your organic's going to drop. That could be, but I don't have, enough data. And I feel like it's really hard to actually replicate those case studies because it depends on what your competitors are bidding. It depends on your reviews, things like that. So from my perspective, you just want to drive as much traffic as possible on the keywords you want to rank for. And then when your consumers convert, your ranking's going to increase depending on how long.
100%. And like you said, there's not a lot of times there's not enough data to support it. And this is all trial and error, and you get a sense of how the market's reacting to it. One of the things that I have been doing is also putting the same focus keywords as a broad match and just dropping down the bids on it. And I've been trying to do some case studies to see if that actually helps the actual keyword, the focus keyword, to rank as well. What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, we almost always recommend doing the same thing. Like I said, we bid on all match types. Now for those ranking campaigns, we put them specifically in their own campaign just for the reason because we want to increase the budget. We're probably going to run them at 100% ECOS. But we also want to bid on them in broad and phrase as well. They'll be in their own campaigns with just a regular budget, and we'll probably still try to hit our target ACOS of maybe 30%, 50% if that's the goal, things like that. So I think that's a great strategy.
Sounds good. And then for sellers who have keywords ranked on page 1 or their listing ranked on page 1, do you recommend running coupons and promotions just for them to boost their sales?
Yeah, coupons and promotions do really, really well. One reason is they show up in the sponsored product placements. They show up in the product display ads. It's a great way to, maintain market share. And something I want to note is if you're on page 1, you still need to be bidding on your sponsored product keywords and your sponsored brand keywords for whatever keyword you're ranked for. Because if you're not doing it, a competitor is. And the worst thing you want to do is not bid on those placements and lose your ranking or lose market share because your competitor's bidding on the keywords that you're not. So 100%. And coupons, like I said, they're pulled in the ad. So increases your conversion, increases your click-through rate. They look fantastic.
Mm-hmm. That's true. And for these keywords, do you guys manage the ranking? I mean, do you guys track the ranking for the clients as well, or is that
We do not. Okay. We've just found so much variability in it. And what tends to happen is, ranking will randomly drop. I think right after Christmas, everyone saw this random change where their organic ranking for, top 3 keywords just completely changed. And what everyone does is they scramble to find a reason why. And then, they find a reason that lines up with their data, and it's probably not going to line up with someone else's because, it's a black box. We will never have the answer. So I find if we get too, caught up in the ranking of everything, then we're probably not going to do our job as well because we're going to be too busy, micromanaging the ranking and trying to make adjustments based off that.
Perfect. That's true. And I did see a lot of posts about ranking dropping in after Christmas. So that's true. One thing might be true for one person, and then it's all speculation from there.
Yes, 1,000,000%.
So for the new sellers out there, let's go to step 1. How do you guys do the keyword research?
Yeah. So typically keyword research is done, before you start PPC, because you did it to write your listing. So something you kind of always want to do is make sure you're bidding on the same keywords that you thought were important when you're writing your listing. So that way there's that correlation between, your back-end keywords, your copy, and what we're bidding on. That's just going to influence the indexation. It's going to help your ranking. It's really going to drive that correlation. So that's something we want to focus on. Another thing I want to say is kind of just use common sense. I think that's an issue a lot of people run into is they pull their helium tin, they do, reverse ASIN, and they get caught up in all the data they're showing. But in reality, you know exactly what your product is. Think about what a consumer types in, use the Amazon search bar. Use a lot of these tools to really just come up with a core list of keywords. Something I really like to use as well is merchant words. We don't actually use it for the data because no one has accurate data on search volume or anything. But what we do is we use it for, to figure out the core long tail keywords. So if you use merchant words and you type in, a pin, it will give you all the long tail variants for the word pin that people are searching. So maybe they're looking for a ballpoint pin, a calligraphy pin. So that's a really great way to get some long tail keywords for whatever your core keyword is.
Right. Yeah, we have a similar tool, our own software, and we don't give out search volume, like you said. It's just estimates. We do get a lot of questions on it, and it's the same response every time. These are estimates at best, so you want to stay away from that. And like you said, one good resource is Amazon itself. You just type in a keyword, and it autocomplete
Yes.
suggests those keywords for you.
Something else is, if you have a lot of history on your listing and you're looking for new keywords, open up a sponsored product campaign, click one of your products to advertise on, and Amazon's going to populate a suggested list of keywords. Typically, if your product has a lot of history, that list is really good. We almost always run suggested keywords. Now, this isn't going to work for a brand new launch with no data. Amazon's going to suggest, a soccer ball, a water bottle, tape, everything random because they don't have data. But if it has data, has conversions, use your suggested keywords.
Got it. And what about reverse ASIN? Do you ever deploy that in your strategy, or do you stay away from it?
Not typically. Where we really start looking at some of those external tools is for product display ads. If we want to look for, competitor ASINs, we'll run a scraper on every ASIN on the first 2 pages and make sure we're targeting them with a PDA. Speaking of PDAs, always recommend you run them on Advertising Console, which is AMS, versus Seller Central, because on AMS you can write copy, which increases your click-through rate and your conversion.
Got it. Okay. Sounds good. So with keyword research, basically use common sense, use the software as directional, but then also, it's funny, I was doing an audit yesterday, and the person who was doing their PPC campaigns were completely going out of budget in the first few hours. So I looked into it, and there was a generic keyword that they pulled from Helium 10, and it wasn't even relevant to their listing. They just did a Cerebro reverse ASIN for one of the competitors.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I actually ran into that exact same thing. And that was one of the main reasonings, I really had to adjust our strategy because there's gold panning, which is kind of if you're an OG seller, about, and it's taking the root keyword, like if you sell a baby product, bidding on baby. But if you're going to bid on top of the funnel keywords like that, you got to do it at 11 cents, 13 cents, because you're not going to convert well enough to be profitable. So 100% love that. Make sure you're going through your list and make sure the keyword makes sense. Like if you wouldn't type it in, you probably don't want to bid on it.
Exactly. So once they have their keyword research done, they have that nailed down. Then the next step is there maybe a checklist that they should go through before they even launch their PPC?
Yeah. Everyone goes back and forth on whether or not you need reviews to launch. It depends on your cash flow. If you're expecting your PPC to be extremely profitable, you should probably make sure you're launching with a good set of reviews and a good number of reviews compared to your category. If you want to launch with PPC without reviews, you're going to spend more money. And yes, your ranking may increase, but you're not going to be profitable. So it depends on your cash flow there. But just in terms of regular launching, make sure you come up with a really good list. I would probably make sure you're setting decently low bids to make sure you're profitable, and then work your way up on keywords. Another thing to note is, let's say you want to spend $500 a month. If you put 500 keywords in one campaign and you bid $1 on all of them, you're not going to be able to collect enough data because, those keywords are going to get a lot of spend. They're going to get a lot of clicks. You just got to do the math. You got to figure out how much you want to bid per month, break it down by the amount of keywords, break it down by what you're bidding. That's kind of an error I see that people do a lot as well. It's just not knowing how their keywords, reflect to their spend.
That's true. Is there maybe if you can dumb down how to get to your desired cost per click, or, to your desired ACoS? Because there's computations that you can do, right? So what's your approach?
A lot of it comes down to, what your margins are. So if you're going to, let's say you have a $20 product, and you want, trying to figure out how to do this without a whiteboard.
Oh, yeah.
But basically, just do the math on how much you can spend divided by your sales to get your desired ACOS. So maybe you have a $20 product and you want to have a 50% ACOS. That means the maximum you can spend is $10. So at $10 and, $1 bid, that means you can get 10 clicks. Now, 10 clicks is not a lot of data. I mean, I know when you're a new seller and you see $10 getting spent, you think it's a lot of data, and 10 clicks is enough data to probably make a decision, but it's not a ton. So maybe set your bid at 50 cents. So that way you can get 20 clicks. 20 clicks is enough data to make a decision, and then you can lower your bid. But when it comes to just setting general CPCs, you really have to know how competitive of a keyword you're bidding on. If you're bidding on a $3 keyword and you set 11-cent bid, you're not going to get any impressions unless all of your competition just runs out of budget and has no money. So it's really relative to the type of keyword you're bidding on. If you're bidding on long tail, you can probably get away with 15 to 16 cent bids. So again, it's really dependent on cash flow. But if you have a lot of cash and you can bid on your competitive keywords, make sure you're at least at a suggested bid. If you really need to be profitable, you're probably not going to bid on your competitive keywords. Focus on long tail, much lower bid.
Right. That's why it's always good to separate the conversion. And I don't know why Amazon's campaign manager doesn't have that, or even the reports. It's just clicks, orders divided by clicks. You get the conversion. Then you can find out whether you're converting well for that keyword. Sometimes it's inflated because it's just a competitive keyword and the cost per keyword, right? So
definitely. Something different we also do is we typically don't negate keywords.
Okay.
So I know if it's relevant. If it's completely irrelevant and showing up in an auto campaign, then yes, we would negate it. But if we're running a general keyword at $1 bid and maybe it's gotten 20 clicks and no conversions, we're still not going to negate it. Even at 30 clicks, we're probably not going to negate it. We're going to keep lowering our bid until we get to the point. Now, if we get maybe 50 plus clicks, no orders, we would pause it. But when you negate keywords, you're just cutting out your potential to scale, because at the right bid, you can spend $50 or you can get 50 clicks at a 10-cent bid and only spend $5. That's perfect. And if it drives an order at $20, guess what? You're still profitable. So that's kind of really something that we focus on, is just decreasing bids in order to optimize and not negating. Because like I said, negating just cuts out your traffic potential.
That's interesting. There's that rule of thumb: if there's 5 clicks, just remove it. If it's an exact match, just pause it. Or if it's broad phrase, put it in the negatives. Is there any rule? I know you said you kind of decrease the bid and don't want to lose potential on it, but are there instances where you say, okay, this amount of clicks, and then I'm just stopping the keyword?
It really depends on that price point. If I had, a $10 product, it's going to really adjust my strategy. And there's instances where I probably would pause the keyword after 100 clicks at a 10-cent bid. That gives us $10 in spend with no sales or one sale. That's still 100% ACOS. But if I have a, $100 product, I can spend much more. I can spend $20 and still have, a 20% ACOS. So that means at $20 at spend, if I have a 50-cent bid, I can get way more clicks. I can get 40 clicks in one order, and terrible conversion, still profitable. Right. So that's something people really need to take into account, is their price point as well.
And now let's talk a little bit about conversions. So the way I kind of look at it is I always look at the unit session percentage. For me, that's one of the best metrics, because it tells you there's really 3 things when it comes to a listing, right? It has to be the right price, it has to have decent amount of reviews, and the images should be good. So if everything's well optimized, the unit session percentage usually is pretty healthy. Now, do you guys look at that when you're looking at the overall conversion for your ad performance, or is that separated?
We do not. We typically don't even see a lot of those metrics being like campaign manager access. Something we will do is when we run an audit is we make sure all of those, all of those items are in place, reviews, imagery, things like that. Because if someone gets on a call with me and they tell me they want a 15% ACOS and they have one image, I'm going to assume, their unit session percentage is not fantastic. Conversion's not going to be fantastic. We're not going to get a 10% ACOS. So it's something we take account, but I don't track closely at all.
Right. Yeah. That's why I kind of rely back on unit session percentage. Let's say if it's 5%, that means, even organically or as a total, there's 1 out of 20 people are buying the product. So it's much easier to link it back with the ACOS and say, okay, well, you're going to get 1 order out of 20 clicks, and that's pretty much the best we can do, or maybe just optimize it a little further. But if it's a competitive niche where the cost per case is, let's say, $2, they're looking at quite a hefty ACOS then.
Definitely. And that's a great call out. And that's something that I often see being posted in groups is, how do I have a great ACOS? I'm at 200%. And the real answer is, advertising is not a quick fix solution to, make your organic better. If you're not doing well organically, you probably shouldn't layer on advertising. Advertising is to really help push you to that next level after you get in a really good spot organically. And I think that's something that's really important, is if 90% of your sales are coming from PPC and 10% are coming from organic, you're probably not in a good place.
Exactly. Yeah. And dealing with sellers that are beginning or just new to Amazon, they're always working with restricted budgets. So it's to make them understand that, this is a slow and gradual process. And if it's, it's not miracles, right? Because at the end of the day, PPC is there to place your ads in front of the right audience. That's what it is.
Definitely.
So I'm sure you guys probably don't deal with that a lot because it's 7 to 8 figure sellers, and they know what they're into, and they know that marketing takes up a lot of the budget then.
Definitely. 100%. We still will run into those scenarios because a lot of people don't touch advertising too closely. So they don't understand why something's not converting as well. Or they're like, maybe we should bid on this keyword. I'm like, that keyword's $5. So we definitely run into it, but not near as much in terms of budget. Because, the more money you have to spend, the more data you can collect and the quicker we can optimize. Versus when you're working on a smaller budget, you really have to make sure you're targeting the right things up front, or else you're just going to spend money. So.
True. So, okay. So we've tackled keyword research. That's nailed down. Then we moved on to our PPC checklist. We looked at reviews and everything. That works out. Then the next step is setting up your first few campaigns or just one campaign. What would you recommend to the new sellers who are just launching their product? What kind of a strategy should they go about when they're in their launch phase?
Yeah, really those long tail keywords. I think that's where you're going to find the most profitability. I would say don't expect to go in at a 5 to 10% ACOS. We typically tell sellers to go at a break even. So if you have 30% margin, hit a 30% ACOS target. You're not trying to make money. What you're really investing in is the flywheel. You're trying to increase your rank. You're trying to increase your reviews by getting more people to your product. So that's why we recommend that break even. So with that, like I said, long tail keywords, they're going to be lower CPC. They're going to allow you to rank for the long tail variants. And then once you get really profitable with those and you want to start investing in, more expensive keywords that are a little bit more competition, a little higher impression, work your way up the funnel that way.
Right. I've always been a fan of long tail keywords. So this strategy is very befitting with what I think as well.
I was pulling some data about 3 days ago. And for one keyword last month, we pulled over 400 different search terms for that one keyword. Okay. And like I said, what's really good about that is, keywords are really expensive. They can get really expensive, but the long tail variants of it and the search terms that are pulled from that keyword is where you're going to get a chance to find much more profitability.
Yeah. And with keywords, because there's so many different keywords, like even I mentioned it at the beginning that a lot of YouTubers initially, I'm not sure how the recent YouTubers are doing it, but they would ask you to dump 300-400 keywords in your campaign. So what's maybe the happy medium that you kind of aim for when setting up?
Yeah, base it on your budget. If you have, like I said, that $100 to spend, maybe only start with 20 keywords and make sure you collect a lot of data for just those 20 keywords. Because if you put 300 to 400 in a campaign, it's going to take you forever to get 10 clicks across all of those keywords with a small budget. So what you're going to end up having is a ton of keywords with, 2 to 3 clicks here, 3 to 4 clicks there, and not enough data to actually know what's going on. So start in really small batches. Make sure you get at least 10 clicks. Start making an adjustment around 8 to 10 clicks of, maybe I should lower my bid a little bit. Maybe I should increase my bid because I already had a conversion, things like that. Just smaller batches, direct control over that budget, and bids.
That's a really good suggestion. That way you have more control over it. And then on the keywords, let's say, so again, this is more of a case study that I'd like to do. Is sometimes what I notice is when we have a lot of keywords, there's a thing that I heard, it's I don't know if it's like an ASIN limit or whatever, but basically what the theory is there's a limit that Amazon sets on your ASIN. So if you're putting in a lot of keywords in, you're not going to get a lot of impressions on most of the keywords. It's just a select few because you run out of that budget that's set for your specific ASIN, and that increases over time. Do you think there's some truth to it?
So I don't think there's a limit, but I think the key piece there was your budget. So, if you have 500 keywords in a campaign, you have to have at least, $1,000 budget to at least get 2 clicks off a $1 bid. It really comes down to the math perspective. But what most people do is they put 500 keywords in a campaign with a $50 budget. And Amazon's just going to give your highest impression, highest click-through rate keywords any traffic. So instead of giving all 50 keywords 5 impressions, they're going to give 5 keywords 10 impressions, which is typically what we see in accounts. Well, we actually just made a change internally where instead of hitting, a 300 limit in keywords, we're doing, maybe 30 to 40 keywords per campaign, mainly for the reasoning of we want our budget to be evenly distributed across more keywords without setting a $500, $1,000 a day budget and hemorrhaging money.
Of course, it's so refreshing to hear this because I do the same thing. I've narrowed it down. It's only 25 to 30 keywords that I target. That's pretty much it.
Yes. Yes. Allows you to get much more control.
Exactly. Yeah. Because like you said, there's so much data coming in. If you put in a lot of keywords that you're not even going to analyze that perfectly, and you wouldn't know exactly which one's converting the best for you. So,
yep.
Okay. That's perfect. What about, so I know we've talked about, setting up long tail keywords. And do you recommend they also set up an auto campaign in the beginning?
Not in the beginning. If you don't have data on your listing, don't do it because Amazon's not going to know, what to index your product for because it's really new. What Amazon does is when your consumers start typing in keywords and then convert on your product, that really starts building up your indexation history. Now, if you have no one that's ever bought your product, Amazon's not going to know other than what's in your listing. And it's going to be really messy. It's going to be a honeymoon period of Amazon trying to figure out what products or what keywords work best for your product. So I don't run an auto campaign until I have enough data. A kind of a really good way to test is by starting a sponsored products campaign, putting in an ASIN and seeing what that suggested list looks like. If your suggested list of keywords is extremely relevant, you can start an auto campaign because it tells you that Amazon knows your product. Now, if that suggested list is, messy and not relevant at all, you probably shouldn't run an auto campaign because Amazon doesn't know what keywords to show your product for. So it's like a quick tip that I like to say.
And then you just dropped a nugget right there. I'll make sure I timestamp that. that was actually pretty good because like you said, the suggested keywords, they're a direct indicator of whether you're being indexed for the right ones or not. And like you said, it's based on history. So the more Amazon indexes your keywords and it'll find out over time that which ones you're converting for well.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Let me just see how we're doing for time. Okay. Wow. That went by pretty quickly. I feel like I can go on for another hour on different questions about PPC, but because we have about 7 to 8 minutes left, the next 10 minutes we'll do the Ask the Expert segment. So same questions that I have, I'm gonna ask and let me know what you think about it.
Perfect.
Okay, so question number one, what is the one question that you get from a lot of new sellers?
So I actually went over these earlier, and it was, what campaigns should I launch, which we covered really, really in depth here. In general, a good metric for people to know is your sponsored products campaigns are going to drive, 30% of what your overall sales are in a healthy account. So with those sponsored products campaigns, you really need to focus on auto campaign, ranking campaign with your major keywords, and then your long tail campaigns. Now, of just your sponsored campaigns and your PPC, your sponsored brands and your display are going to typically drive 30% of what your sponsored products does. So once you really have your sponsored products in a good spot, you can start investing in your sponsored brands for an additional 30% in sales.
Right. Just off topic, do you leverage the brand analytics as well? What are you usually looking for? Because I feel like we need to give some out for the brand register sellers as well.
Yeah, we've played around with brand analytics quite a bit. We've used it for keyword research. We've used it to pull a list of ASINs to target, things like that. For people that are brand registered, quickest tip, run your sponsored brands in alignment with your sponsored products. A lot of people don't like touching headline search ads because they're a little bit more complex. You have a landing page, you have copy, you have an image. Sponsored brands will drive 30% of the sales typically your sponsored products does. So if you're, have $100,000 in sponsored product sales a month, that's an additional potential for 25 to 30,000 with your headline search ads. And when it comes from keyword targeting, it's not any different than what you do on the sponsored product side. Just make sure your copy makes sense and your imagery looks good, and then bid on the same keywords.
Perfect. And what do you kind of look for when you're looking at the brand analytics? Someone who's running it by themselves, they might find this of interest.
Yeah, we typically just use it for that search function of typing in an ASIN, typing in a keyword, and pulling those relevant lists. So if we want to see, the different search volume of keywords, we'll kind of put in a keyword and we'll pull all the relevant keywords that come up. Or if we want to see, what other ASINs we should be targeting in product display ads or sponsor product ASIN targeting, we just run that list too. We don't really use it for much else though, just because we only touch the ad piece.
Of course. Yeah. And so I know we talked about a lot of tips, but what's the one 2020 tip that you'd like to share on PPC?
I wrote down make data-based decisions. I just want to preach that over and over. What I see a lot in the groups is, oh, I started this, product targeting ad. It was terrible. I stopped it. I'm never going to run it again. That's not a good way to look at things. I mean, we have one brand that ran $200,000 in just product display ad sales last month alone at a 15% ACOS. If you optimize things correctly, it will run well. Same thing for keywords. If you're pausing a keyword after 4 clicks, because, emotionally it's really scary to not get conversions after 4 clicks, you're just cutting off sales potential. What you should do is just lower that bid. Now, if you get to the point where you're spending a lot of money on a keyword that's past your break-even margin, $20 margin, you spend $10, you should lower your bid or pause a keyword, things like that. So biggest thing, trust the data and look at the right time frames. That's not something we really dove into here, but when it comes to analyzing data, some people will look at lifetime data, which could be a year. Your conversion changes so much and your competition changes so much over a year. It's probably not the appropriate time frame to look at when you're making bid adjustments. Typically, we look at, last 30 days and last 60 days, and we compare those two.
Yeah, last 30, last 60, that works out. And plus, in the midst of it, you're making so many different changes.
Yeah.
It's all commingled too. And it's funny, I still don't believe why a lot of sellers, they don't even look at their search term reports.
Yes.
I mean, it's good now that Amazon has the search terms and history, which is really a good feature. They have it there now, but before that, people weren't even looking at their search term reports, and
yes. That's where we do the majority of our keyword research. But explaining that, over a podcast, it's really, really complex. We've seen how much time we've spent just talking about long tail keywords. But, search term reports are always the first place we look for new keywords. It's, direct data. It's actual conversion data. It's not a tool that tells you what should convert. It's what did convert. So make sure you're using them.
One thing that I've set as a goal for myself is using the bulk upload feature. I haven't used it yet. Do you guys use that for some of your clients?
Yes, that's actually what our full team uses for everything from bid management to launching new campaigns.
Got it. Okay. Is it easy to use? Should I dive into it or?
It's very complex, but it's going to automate pretty much everything you do. And there's enough free videos out there that you can figure it out pretty quickly. That's something that don't pay for a course on bulk uploads. Just search online and play around until you get it dialed in.
Yeah, and Amazon's accreditation, they cover that a little bit too, but I've never used it. So that's something I was like, okay, 2020, that's what I want to use definitely.
It's fantastic for automation.
That's good. Good to hear. Okay, question number 3. This is a bit off Amazon, more related to running a business in general, but what's the most effective way to market your brand, either on Amazon or just in general in e-commerce realm?
Yeah, I will probably stick with on Amazon because it's what I know. Using store pages, fantastic. You can actually run a sponsored brand that drives straight to your store page. Those do pretty well. Using sponsored brands, you can write copy. So, if you have a tagline or if you're trying to promote a certain product, use sponsor brand headline ads because you can write copy, you can put your logo, or you can put, a new creative image up there. Those look fantastic. Product display ads, exact same thing. So if your competitor has a product, with a 0.5 less star than you, run a product display ad on your competitor to win market share. That's a great way to really drive that brand awareness. And Amazon gives us that data on the sponsored brand side. So on sponsored brands, we can actually see how many of our orders are new to brands. That's something we want to keep track of to make sure that we're targeting consumers who have never bought our product before, not people that are just coming back and repurchasing.
Got it. That's good advice. You mentioned taglines. I see many brands, they put their brand slogan. But do you think there's a better way to write the content for your tagline that lures in a lot more customers?
I do. So a kind of a good example is Nike. Everyone knows that slogan, just do it. Now, if you're bidding on the keyword Nike, just Nike, it makes sense to put just do it because a consumer's looking just for a top of the funnel traffic. Now, if someone's typing Nike tennis shoes, you should probably find a way to put Nike tennis shoes in your copy. So that way your headline is extremely aligned with what a consumer's searching. So you're only targeting keywords that are relevant to, whatever headline you put. Or maybe they're searching for, red track shoes. Nike should put, track shoes, maybe not the color because that's very specific, but they should put a call out for track shoes. So that way consumers know their headline is advertising track shoes, not running shoes, not soccer cleats, things like that.
Right. And it's more specific to what they're searching for.
Yeah. So that's how we align it.
Do you also recommend putting, let's say, if sometimes you'll see made 100% in USA or things that kind of differentiate the product from the others?
Definitely. And these also do really well for product display ads because it's a direct differentiator under the buy box. So we do it in both scenarios. One of our products, for example, has some Olympic ties. So we make sure we call that out in the copy, Olympic product, things like that. Or maybe we have a product that's premium. So it's made from premium materials or, there's a million different ways, but those work fantastically for both types of ads.
Got it. Question number 4, keyword targeting or ASIN targeting and why?
Both, 100% both. So keyword targeting is going to drive more sales. Because if you think about it, there's 12 different placements for a sponsored product ad, depending on the day, on page 1, where else the ASIN targeting shows up typically under the buy box and sponsored products related to this item. So in order for that to get impressions, someone has to click on the listing, scroll down to see your ad. So it's less impression, less sales. Now they convert just as well. They convert really well, depending on what you're bidding on, but always run both. Recommend running all the ad types that are profitable for you in general.
Got it. Again, diverting from the questions again, but you mentioned top of search and product pages. So when it comes to placements, do you feel that top of searches convert a lot more, like the ACOS is more favorable than product pages?
It's actually been much more skewed than what I thought. So we don't launch any ads with modifiers. But what we do is if I click into an ad and see that top of search is 20% and, rest of search is 60%, I will increase my bid for top of search. But from a data perspective, it's actually all over the board. It really just depends on the product. Like top of search doesn't do 90% better than, product detail pages, which surprised me.
Yeah, especially because it has such a high click-through rate because it's.
We're seeing something off topic again. We could talk about this forever, but we're seeing something similar with auto campaigns, because auto campaigns you can now run in close match, loose match, substitute, and complements. A lot of people are only running them in close match because it has the higher ACOS. But if you test the other match types, they actually do decently well. You just have to optimize your bids.
Okay. I stay away from loose match. Have you seen any success with that at all?
Yeah, what we've actually been doing is we've been running 4 auto campaigns per product. So we'll do 1 auto campaign strictly targeting close match, 1 auto campaign strictly targeting, loose, 1 for substitutes, 1 for complements. Because what happens is typically, Amazon only gives traffic to the one that's going to be the highest click-through rate, highest converter. So, the other ones don't get as well of results. So loose match, we've optimized the bid and seen really good results. Depends on the product. Again, depends on how well Amazon knows the relevancy, but.
Right. That is such good advice, because I find that myself where the most impressions go to just one type.
Yeah, it's usually close too, which is a good thing. It converts well, but.
No, that's really good advice. Okay, we're going to do 2 more questions. This one's more of a business advice. So what is your approach to setting up a successful team? Because with scaling, you need a team, and, asking from the expert, how did you go about setting up a successful team?
I think one of the biggest things that Taylor and I have really preached from the beginning is we want people that are passionate about Amazon. They're passionate about change. They're really, really flexible. And, they align with our culture and our values. You followed me. And one of the biggest things that Taylor and I really want to do is we want to help people. We really want to drive value. That's why we're not afraid to turn away clients if they're not a good fit, because, we want to make sure we work with people that we can really, really help. So finding people that have those same values that, don't just want to be crazy successful in a brand new industry, but that instead they want to, change brands and really drive scale and help people out, and that are passionate as you and I about PPC. So those are the big things we focus on, is kind of core values rather than skill sets. Yeah,
that's also what, have you heard of Simon Sinek?
I have not.
Okay, so he wrote this book, Why? Yes, he works with a lot of big organizations, and he says the difference between a great company and a good company is that with a great company, the employees not only know what they're doing and how they're doing it, they also know why they're doing it. So that's where a lot of the passion is generated from, and they're aligned.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah. So that was a good answer. Last one's a bit personal. Is there a habit that you follow religiously that helps you grow as a person or be more organized in your day-to-day life?
Yeah, it's kind of a broad answer. And like you said, it's a little personal, but what I found I've struggled with most with just being an entrepreneur is balancing out your kind of mental health, and even your physical health ties directly into that. Because you have days where you feel like you're on top of the world. You signed a brand, it was amazing. And then you have days where it was the most stressful thing that's ever happened. And you're like, why am I in this industry? So really taking the time to, focus on myself, focus on my mental health, minimize drinking, and then, go to the gym, work out, because your mental health can be a direct relation of your physical health as well. So drink a lot of water. But I think those are aspects that really need to be focused on in this digital day and age. And just from an entrepreneur perspective, it's not near as stable as what a regular career is. Regular jobs, you go in, something catches on fire, you probably don't have to fully handle it. It's on your boss. When you're an entrepreneur, all of that is on you. So it really takes a lot of focus on, your mentality. Like Stephen Black always, presents a lot about that. And it's been really cool to follow just what he preaches in that subject.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so funny. Mike Zagari from last episode said pretty much the same thing. And he also said he does a lot of meditation. Is that something?
Okay. Yes, 100%. It's fantastic. Just the ability to calm your mind when you have 98 different things you're trying to worry about, your deliverables for the day, and just waking up, being able to sit down, do either guided meditation or, just silently focusing on just everything internal has been amazing. It's been a big help.
Perfect. Yeah, and working out helps as well. So you need that clear headspace in order to tackle the day. Like you said, you can't just walk away from the problems because you're the sole responsible for.
Yes, and you have to be able to bounce back quickly.
Exactly, yeah.
You get punched, you got to figure it out. You can't just sit there and be like, this is the worst day ever. Like,
Oh yeah, no, you have to face the music. So
yep.
that helps with the mental health. Sounds good. We cut it into the time a little bit, but it was great conversation. Like I said, I can continue talking about this for hours, and I learned a few things from you. So thanks for being on the podcast, and really appreciate your input in this.
Of course. And thank you so much. I appreciate you asking me. It's a fantastic opportunity to connect with people and hopefully save some people some spend.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, we'll chat later then.
Awesome. Thank you.